All right, guys, so today we are starting Chapter 5, a new chapter. This chapter is on ratio, proportions, and similar figures. Our very first lesson is, we're just starting fairly basic, it's on ratios. So you should have your vocab out already, green on the left, notes on the right. Let's go ahead and start with the first word. Actually, it's the only word today, and that word is ratio. Everyone? Okay, so here's what a ratio is. It's a comparison of two quantities by division. Okay, your book says it's a comparison of two quantities by division. So in your little box over to the side, go ahead and write down these three ratios. They're all the same ratios. They're all 3 to 9, but they're written in different ways. So go ahead and write that down. As a matter of fact, when you get to the fraction one, the one in fraction form, go ahead and write it like that instead. So 3 to 9, 3 to 9, 3 to 9. Okay, now I do want to start this lesson, before we even get into the examples, I want to start this lesson with a couple of reminders. We can put a little star here, a couple little reminders about ratios. Of course, we'll go through more of it whenever we get to our examples, but a couple of things that students do that is a huge mistake, and so you need to watch out for and make sure you don't do the same thing. Let's say that we have the ratio 3 to 2. 3 to 2. Now, you have to remember, this is in fraction form, but it's not a fraction. It is a ratio. This is a 3 to 2 ratio. Those numbers actually stand for a quantity of something. Okay, so if I was to make this, let's say, a rate by putting units on there, it'd be something like 3 pens and 2 pencils. So it'd be 3 pens to 2 pencils is our ratio, okay, our rate. A lot of people, because they're so used to fractions, get to this point and say, "Oh, okay, I know I can go ahead and change that to a mixed number." So they go, "Okay, well, I'll just put 1 and 1/2." Okay, I have to warn you, first of all, no, don't do it. Don't be tempted to do it. Look, that does look like an improper fraction, but it's not a fraction. You have to remember, it's in fraction form, but this is a ratio. Each of these stand for something. 3 pens and 2 pencils. So if we take a look, 1 and 1/2, I mean, what do you have? 1 pen, another pen, and 2, I mean, it doesn't make sense. That's why we don't change what looks like an improper fraction to a mixed number. You leave it. Okay, it is a ratio. Now, kind of related to that, I want to talk about another specific improper fraction is 5 to 1. Okay, so, talking about, just giving another example, what if we have like 2 students to 1 desk? We were doing some kind of group activity, 5 students to 1 desk. So if we have 5 students to 1 desk, so many people get to this point as an answer in a ratio, if they don't see that, and they say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and put that. There's my answer." Okay, again, don't do it. For the same reason that this is. If this was a fraction, yes, that would be true. But this is a ratio. You have 5 students to 1 desk. You just put 5, you may be referring to the students, but you just got rid of the desk, and you don't want to do that. So make sure that ratios are in fraction form that appear to be improper. They're okay. All right. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get to some examples here out of our book. All right, let's take a look at book page 186. So if you don't have your book out, go ahead and get it out, book page 186, and go ahead and let's take a look at problem number 14. So go ahead and get out your paper if you don't have it out. First and last name, period, assignment number on the top, date. Okay, so here we go. Number 14. I'll go ahead and write it down for those of you that are still taking your book out. We have 16 pens to 10 pencils. All right. So when you're dealing with ratios, we have 16 pens to 10 pencils. When you're dealing with ratios, okay, we're going to go ahead and do step 1, and here it is. You're going to take your 2 quantities, in this case a 16 and the 10, and you're going to write them, at least today, because if you read the directions, it says express each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. I'm going to go ahead and write them down as a fraction. Now, it's very important that, because order matters, that your first number, your first quantity in this this problem here goes on top. So 16. And your second one goes on the bottom. It's a 16 to 10 ratio. Okay? So order does matter, so be very careful with that. Now, the other thing, of course, is step 2. And in this way, we're going to treat it like a fraction. And you're going to see fractions, a lot of, in math, ratios will want to be written as fractions because it allows us to treat them a lot like fractions when it comes to the math part of it. So, so if we go ahead and have this, step 2 is we're going to go ahead and reduce or simplify. So in this case, I'm going to divide top and bottom by 2, and we get an 8 to 5 ratio. And that's it. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. So let's go ahead. I'm going to have you try one. All right, just 2 easy steps. Go ahead and try, same page, problem number 10. Problem 10. Go. Okay, so go ahead, turn to your neighbors. Guys, when you share with your neighbors, please make sure that, of course, you can share your ratio, but make sure that it is in the correct order. Okay, so 30 seconds. Go ahead and share. Okay, so problem number 10. We take a look, and it says 9 out of 15 pets. 9 out of 15 pets. So I'm going to go ahead. I have my 2 quantities. This is step 1, right? I write them in fraction form. So my first one goes on top, 9. My second one goes on the bottom, 15. I'm then going to simplify. So 9 and 15 actually can both be reduced by 3. And we get a 3 to 5 ratio. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a very similar problem, basically the same 2 steps, but there's a little extra to this type of problem that I want to make sure I point out to you guys. So let's go ahead, stick on page 186, but let's take a look at problem number 20. Okay, problem 20. If you take a look at the directions, express each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. It's the exact same directions. Okay. However, there is a little twist to it. So here it is. So number 20 has 18 quarts to 4 gallons. 18 quarts to 4 gallons. So here's what we're going to do. So many of us right off the bat, right? If we were to follow these 2 steps, you'd have 18 over 4. You would reduce it, get probably like a 9 over 2. And unfortunately, that would be wrong. All right? We'll call this step star. All right? It's a little reminder step right at the very beginning. When you're dealing with ratios, you have to be careful because there are times where the 2 units you're dealing with are units of measurement. Okay? And if they're units of measurement, and they are the same types of unit of measurement, meaning they're units that measure either distance or weight, mass, or in this case, capacity. Okay, they're both capacity, right? You put liquid in both of these here. then you need to do something. You need to actually make them be the exact same units for your ratio to be accurate. Okay, so in this case, quarts to gallons, quarts, here's what I would recommend. Now, you can do it either way, and you're going to get the right answer if you do it either way. However, I'm going to show you the easier way to do this. We can convert quarts to gallons, or we can convert gallons to quarts. Now, what I would recommend is, out of the two, find the one that is larger. Okay, when you're just talking about the unit of measurement, okay, gallons are bigger than quarts. Quarts are those little skinny, tall milk cartons that you get from the grocery store. They're skinny, but they're tall. Gallons are those big, right, plastic jugs that you get. That's a gallon jug of milk. This is larger. So what I would do is I would choose a larger one. The reason is because that allows us to multiply. Now, if you don't already know this, okay, there are 4 quarts, okay, for each gallon. Now, what I can do is I have 2 choices. I can take the 4 gallons and multiply, because it's the larger unit measurement, I can multiply it by the 4. Or I could take the quarts and divide it by the 4 to change this into gallons. Now, the reason why I say multiply, because think about it. 18 divided by 4 is going to give us a decimal or a fraction to work with, which is a little more of a pain. So that's why I said it's always a little easier to take the larger unit of measurement, gallons, and then use the multiplication part. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by 4, and that's going to give us how many quarts there are. So I'm going to rewrite this as 18 quarts equal 4 times 4 is 16. Now be careful, don't put 16 gallons. You can't, we're only changing the way this looks when it comes to units. We are not changing how much it is. So if you put 16 gallons, you're changing 4 gallons to 16 gallons. That's a big difference. That's not what we want to do. So make sure that when you change it, also change the unit. So we have 18 quarts to 16 quarts. And now we're ready to go. So we just follow our steps. Step 1 is, of course, take your 2 quantities, write them down. It's an 18 to 16 ratio. And then step 2, right, is simplify. So I'm going to divide both by 2 and get a 9 to 8 ratio. And that is the accurate ratio. That's the correct ratio. Okay, so just be careful when it comes to seeing units of measurement that measure the same thing. Okay, you'll need to convert one of them. All right, so let's try one of those on your own. Let's go ahead and take a look and try out problem number 18. Number 18. Okay, go. Okay, 30 seconds. Turn to your neighbor. Go. All right, so here we go. Problem number 18. Problem number 18 says you have 10 yards to 3 feet. Sorry, to 10 feet. I don't know where I got the 3 from. Well, I do know. I was thinking ahead here. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and convert it, right? These are 2 units of measurement of distance. And I said 3 earlier because I was already thinking we have 3 feet and 10 yards. So remember what I said? I said find the one that is the larger of the 2, yards and feet. Well, a yard is larger than feet. And so remember we have 3 feet that's going to be equal to 1 yard. So I go ahead and I take my larger one and then I'm going to multiply it by 3. So when I rewrite it, I'm going to go ahead, instead of putting 10 yards, I'm going to put 30 feet to 10 feet. And so when I go ahead and do this, I take a look, right? Step 1, of course, is take my 2 quantities, the first one over the second. That's a 30 to 10 ratio. If I reduce both by 10, I am going to get a 3 to 1 ratio, and that is our answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the last type of problem. All right, and let's take a look at problem number 30. And I know this says 186, it's actually on 187. Okay, so problem number 30 says, compare the directions, say compare each pair of ratios using less than, greater than, or equal to. All right, so problem number 30 in your book says there are 8 girls out of 18 students. And then the other one that we're going to compare it to is 12 girls out of 22 students. Okay, now there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. For the sake of getting a little bit of extra practice in a couple of different spots, I'm going to show you the way that we're going to solve this in here. So here's what we're going to do. Step 1 is let's go ahead and change this to a ratio. And as a matter of fact, instead of just that, let's change both of them to ratio. So what we have is we have an 8 to 18 ratio here. And this one is a 12 to 22. And then step 2 is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to simplify. So when I simplify, I'm going to divide both top and bottom by 2 here and get 4 to 9 ratio. And I'm going to do the same thing here and simplify to get 6 to an 11 ratio. Now, step 3 is, here's what I'm going to do. I'm kind of running out of space here, but I do want to keep them right next to each other. All right. So here's what I want to do. Let me move this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use our friend the calculator, right, that we've been using just recently. And I'm going to go ahead and just convert these two to a decimal. So we just plug in, right? This is division, 4 divided by 9, and that gives us 0.44, okay, with a line over it, or just 0.4 in bar notation. And then I'm going to convert this one. So 6 divided by 11. And we end up with 0.54, and that repeats. Now here's what you're going to do next is step 4, compare the two. Now always try to make sure that that your decimals have the same amount of digits. That will help some of us when it comes to comparing. And in this case, there are 2 digits to the right of the decimal. And this obviously is larger, 54 hundredths compared to 44 hundredths. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is say that one's larger than that one. Now step 5, and this is what we've been working on lately, and many of you guys have gotten better at it, is I'm going to go ahead and put it back in original form. So in one of my classes I've had people ask, well, is this the original form? No, you don't have to go back to this whole sentence here. Just use your original ratio. So we're going to go ahead and compare 8 18ths and 12 22nds. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, well, which one's larger? This one here, so 12 22nds is larger, so we'd write the less than sign. So 8 to 18 ratio is less than 12 to 22. Okay? Or, of course, for you guys wondering if you just happen to write it this way, and flip-flop the ratios, right? As long as you flip-flop the inequality sign, it means the same thing. 12 over 22 is greater than an 8 to 18 ratio. So there's your answer. All right, so here's what I'd like you guys to do. Okay, last problem. Go ahead and try out problem number 32. Okay, 32, go. Okay. All right, go ahead and turn to your neighbor and share your answer. Go. Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look at problem number 32. Okay, number 32 says we have 24 thriller movies out of 36 DVDs. And then we have 10 thriller movies out of 15 DVDs. So here we go. Let's go ahead and first change these to ratios. This is a 24 to 36 ratio. This is a 10 to 15 ratio. All right. I can go ahead and take a look here. I can reduce both of these by 4. This gives us a 6 to 9 ratio. Oh wait, I can reduce it even further, right? By 3. And the reason is, of course, is because we could have divided both of them by 12 to begin with. So we have oops, a 2 to 3 ratio. This one here can reduce by 5 and get a 2 to 3 ratio. And at this point, you guys probably could see, right? We don't even have to do step 3 to convert. We're going straight to step 4. We compare. It's obvious. And so I'm going to go ahead and write it in original form. Our ratio of 24 to 36 is equal to the ratio of 10 to 15. You'd say it's proportional to 10 to 15. All right, so there is our lesson on ratios.